So, greetings, everyone. This is Angie. And today, what I'm going to do is, first of all, wish you all a wonderful, healthy, and safe day as we deal with this global pandemic of coronavirus, the COVID 19. And I am at home doing this video. So, if you hear my dogs barking, I apologize for that. So, some of you may know that I'm very interested in Pakistan, and I am a Christian. So, I'm particularly interested in the issues that Pakistani Christians have to deal with. But today, I want to talk about another very specific topic. And let's talk about Pakistan's blasphemy laws. And I have a lot of notes here, and I'm going to cruise around the internet a little bit and just see what things are being said about the blasphemy laws in Pakistan. So I hope you stick with me and enjoy. So, a lot of people think that we have the human right to free speech, right? Well, that doesn't always show up in laws. So, what do you think blasphemy is anyway? So, blasphemy is, as a definition, it's an act of expressing abusive or profane or insulting language against something that's divine or against a particular religion. Not just Islam or Christianity. Blasphemy is insulting any religion or anything that's somebody might consider as divine. Okay, so that's blasphemy. So let's talk about Pakistan and Pakistan's stance on blasphemy. And a lot of folks know that the majority of Pakistanis are Muslims, and that Pakistan does have Sharia law or Islamic law. And many Muslim majority countries do have various forms of Sharia law. So there's even a lot of controversy within the Muslim community about the interpretation of Sharia law. But let's just focus on Pakistan for this particular video clip. So in August 13 of 2017, I found an article in the magazine called The Economist, very famous, credible magazine. And there's an article in there that said that the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, which is, I've actually visited that office. They're right here in Washington, D.C. And that's what they focus on, is they focus on looking at religious freedom around the world, and they make reports about it at least once a year. So the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom assessed 71 countries that punished for blasphemy, and said the 5 countries that practiced the grossest violations of international standards were all Muslim majority lands. The top countries were Iran, that's number 1, and Pakistan was number 2. In both countries, blasphemers can face the death penalty. So Yemen, Somalia, and Qatar were next in line. And surprisingly, to me anyway, Saudi Arabia came in at number 11. I thought they would be higher, but they came in at number 11. Another statistic, so you may be familiar with an organization called Human Rights Watch. So Human Rights Watch wrote that Section 295C of Pakistan's Penal Code, known as the Blasphemy Law, carries what is effectively a mandatory death sentence. Now, according to the Center for Social Justice, a Pakistani advocacy group, at least 1,472 people have been charged under blasphemy provisions in Pakistan from 1987 to 2016. And the article says that although there have been no executions in Pakistan for blasphemy, at least by the legal system, at least 17 people convicted of blasphemy are still on death row, while many others are serving life sentences for related offenses. So let's talk about some cases regarding blasphemy in Pakistan. Let's cruise around the internet here and let's see what we find. So here's an article here, and this one has to do with persecution, international Christian concern. So let's look at some articles here. Okay, so here we go. And these are all current. Look at this. Yesterday, this was published March 20, 2020. Pastor in India continues ministry. Okay, that's in India. Here we go. March 19 of 2020, another difficult year for Christians in Pakistan. The country's Christian community continues to suffer. March 12 of 2020, the title of this article is "A Muslim Employer in Pakistan Beats Christian Employee for Asking to Go to Church." On March 8, Shan Masi, age 18, was reportedly tortured by his Muslim employer located in Pakistan's Punjab province. According to local sources, the Muslim employer used sticks and an iron rod to beat Masi after he asked for leave to attend a Sunday worship service. He requested the landlord to allow him to take the day off to go to church, and the application was rejected. After he asked for permission, the landlord reportedly became very aggressive and began to abuse Masi. According to witnesses, the landlord said, quote, "I will teach you a lesson, and afterwards you will never feel the need to go to church." The landlord then attacked Masi, beating him with sticks and an iron rod. Witnesses claim the landlord was attempting to break Masi's legs so that he could not walk to church. However, local people intervened before Masi was too badly injured. So that's just one case of Christian persecution. Let's go back. Here's another article. A couple sentenced to death for blasphemy in Pakistan, soon to receive appeal decision. 2 Christians shot in Pakistan while attempting to construct a new church. Christian in Pakistan tortured to death for bathing in Muslims' well. Asia Bibi, who is a famous case, to seek political asylum in France. This is a very famous case of blasphemy that took place in Pakistan. Asia Bibi is a Pakistani Christian. She was acquitted of blasphemy charges in 2019. So now they're seeking, they have asylum in Canada. In June of 2009, Bibi was falsely accused of committing blasphemy by Muslim co-workers in Pakistan. According to local reports, Bibi's Muslim co-workers became angry with her when she, a Christian whom they considered unclean, drank water from the same bowl as the Muslims. So in November of 2010, Bibi was convicted of committing blasphemy and sentenced to death. She was the first woman in Pakistan's history to be sentenced to death on blasphemy charges. For the next 8 years, Bibi remained on death row as her blasphemy conviction was appealed through Pakistan's legal system. Her case became international, and looking at the abuse of Pakistan's blasphemy laws. So in October of 2018, surprisingly, Pakistan Supreme Court acquitted Bibi. They said there wasn't enough evidence to convict her. Of course, she'd already been on death row for 8 years. So she was finally allowed in May of last year to seek asylum in Canada. So this is a major issue, obviously, in Pakistan. So let's see. There's also something here that's from the International Christian Concern. Let me find, there's here the Human Rights Watch. I talked about that a little bit. Let's go to Wikipedia for a minute, just because it's quick. And I know it's not always the best source in the world, but it is quick. So, on some other cases regarding blasphemy in Pakistan. So, let's check this out. In December of 2017, a 58-year-old man accused of blasphemy was freed after spending over 9 years in jail. Not enough evidence in accordance with Pakistan's Evidence Act. In July of 2017, Faisal Mahmood was charged with blasphemy 295C and could be sentenced to death. In March of 27, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif supported a crackdown on blasphemous material posted on social media and described blasphemy as an unpardonable offense. Shortly after that, a Pakistani blogger, Ayaz Nizami, founded a realisticapproach.org, an Urdu website about atheism. He was detained under the charges of blasphemy and could face the death penalty. Let's see. In September of 2013, a Lahore-based woman, Salma Fatima, was arrested by police after she distributed pamphlets declaring herself a prophet. So just some examples of some cases. And let me look at another source here. This is from the Japan Times, some cases in Pakistan regarding blasphemy. Okay, the article is called "Blasphemy Still a Potent Tool for Pakistan's Hushed Hardliners," and in Lahore, Pakistan. So let me just read you here. Inside a small Lahore courtroom, the packed crowd attended the hearing of a blasphemy case against a Christian pastor. The most notable about that was the absence of hardline clerics shouting insults and demanding the death penalty. So what happened? For years, these people would attend such hearings in force, seeking to pressure the magistrates to convict and impose the severest sentences on anyone facing what is an incendiary charge in Pakistan. But 1 year after the conclusion of Pakistan's most high-profile blasphemy case and a government crackdown against extremists who exploited it for political ends, the clerics are largely gone. So, Pastor Adnan Prince, who stands accused of desecrating the Quran, said, quote, "Before Asiya Bibi, dozens of Maulanas, religious scholars, were coming to my hearings, but after that, they didn't come anymore." So they talk a little bit about Asiya Bibi's case again, and then it says, her release was pounced on by the hardline Islamist Tehreek-e-Labbaik Pakistan Party, which was formed 5 years ago and gained influence by weaponizing the blasphemy issue. The party spearheaded violent street protests against Bibi's acquittal and called for the Supreme Court justices to be killed, but crossed the reddest of red lines by urging the overthrow of the country's powerful army chief. So it talks about this, and then it says the voice of the religious far right has been muffled. The crackdown had sent a clear signal to the extremists who abandoned their courtroom lobbying. But among the magistrates, the feeling of fear is still there. According to one former judge, magistrates in Pakistan's lower courts remain very vulnerable to intimidation in blasphemy cases, given that they often live among the communities they serve. So due to the risk of being labeled blasphemers themselves if they acquit, they tend to always convict, said a former judge. A recent example saw a university professor, Junaid Hafiz, sentenced to death in December for insulting the Prophet Muhammad. Given that the first lawyer who agreed to represent Hafiz was murdered, his family argued there was never any prospect of receiving a fair hearing. Could any judge in such circumstances take the risk of doing justice? They said in a statement. Oh my goodness, this is just a mess. This is just a mess. So a lawyer, Nadim Anthony, said, in many people's minds, even though he's been acquitted, he's still guilty. So he has to live in hiding. I mean, so what is this? You know, what is that? That's just terrible. So those are some cases of blasphemy in Pakistan and how Pakistan treats so-called blasphemers. Let's take a look at the history of the Pakistani blasphemy laws. Let's cruise back over to Wikipedia real quick for a quick summary. So it says here that religion-related offenses on the territory of modern Pakistan were first codified by the British Raj in 1860, and they were expanded in 1927. Pakistan inherited the legislation when it gained independence and after the partition of India in 1947. So several sections of Pakistan's penal code comprise its blasphemy law. So between 1986 and 2007, Pakistani authorities charged 647 people with blasphemy offenses. 50% of them were non-Muslims, who represent only about 3% of the national population. No judicial execution for blasphemy has ever occurred in Pakistan, but 20 of those charged were murdered. So on January 12th of 2011, Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani, am I saying that correctly, once again said that there would be no amendments to the blasphemy law. And if I remember correctly, Imran Khan, the current prime minister, also supports the blasphemy laws. United Nations, Pakistan's support of blasphemy laws has caused it to be active in the international arena in promoting global limitations on freedom of religion or belief and limitations on freedom of expression. In March 2009, Pakistan presented a resolution to the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva, which calls upon the world to formulate laws against the defamation of religion. How do you like that? Okay, March 19 of 2014, about 6 years ago, The Nation polled its readers and reported that 68% of Pakistanis believe that blasphemy law should be repealed. But on the other hand, the International Crisis Group reported that the Islamic parties are most successful in galvanizing street power when the goal is narrowly linked to obstructing reforms to discriminatory religious laws that often provoke sectarian violence and conflict and undermine the rule of law and constitutionalism. So Pakistani human rights activists say that because there's no punishment for making a false accusation, charges of blasphemy are being used to harass minorities and settle personal conflicts. Unbelievable. So let's talk about the religious component of this. What about blasphemy in Islam? You know, because just because blasphemy is in the legal systems of all these countries, especially in Pakistan, I mean, should we immediately assume that it's Islamic? I don't know. So from my understanding and from what I've read, Muslim scholars themselves disagree on whether blasphemy is Islamic. I mean, some say that blasphemy against a religion, especially Islam, is punishable according to their religion, but others say that, they say the Quran and Hadiths do strongly assert that blasphemy is very, very offensive, but that no earthly punishment is to be meted out for blasphemy against any religion. Instead, it will be taken care of by Allah in the afterlife. So now in the Quran, many scholars claim that although blasphemy types of issues are addressed many times, dozens of times, the Quran prescribes, again, no worldly punishment. This is what many scholars of Islam believe. So, notwithstanding that, you might remember a case in Indonesia. This Christian governor, Ahok, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Let me read a clip from an article about Indonesia and what happened with him and blasphemy. Governor Ahok is right that the Quran does not mandate Muslims to vote for a Muslim over a non-Muslim. Instead, Quran 4:59-60 commands Muslims, quote, "Verily, Allah commands you to make over the trusts to those entitled to them, and that when you judge between men, you judge with justice. O ye who believe, obey Allah and obey his messenger and those who are in authority among you." Thus, according to this article, the Quran commands Muslims to judge with justice, not religion. Likewise, the Quran could have added that the faithful should only obey those in authority who are Muslim, but that notable omission speaks volumes otherwise. So, in this article, it says, in a twist of irony, this Christian governor in Indonesia, accused of blasphemy, cited the Quran correctly, while the Muslim clerics punishing him are themselves wrong. So, if such clerics are that hell-bent on blasphemy laws, they should be arrested themselves and set this governor free. I just found that very interesting. Now, on the flip side of that, and this is where many Muslims believe that blasphemy is Islamic. So I'm going to read you some verses from the Quran that give Muslims this idea. So Quran 693, and I quote, "Who can be more wicked than one who invent a lie against Allah? If the death penalty is prescribed for lesser crime, then it stands to reason that it should be imposed for the most wicked." Okay. Quran 33:57. "Verily, those who annoy Allah and his messenger, Allah has cursed them in this world and in the hereafter, and has prepared them for a humiliating torment." Quran 33:61. This is a continuation of the last verse. "Accursed, they will be seized wherever found and slain, and slain with a fierce slaughter." Okay, the Hadith. Here's a couple of verses from the Hadith. So I don't know if I pronounce this correctly. Pardon me if I slaughter the name. Sahih Bukhari 59:369. This recounts the murder of Ka'b bin al-Ashraf, a Jewish poet who wrote verses about Muslims that Muhammad found insulting. He asked his followers, "Who will rid me of this man?" And several volunteered. Al-Ashraf was stabbed to death while fighting for his life. Another one, Sahih Muslim 1801. The messenger of Allah said, "Who will kill Ka'b bin Ashraf? He has maligned Allah, the Exalted, and his messenger." So, the Sharia law, I happen to have a book here, and I don't know if you can read this. It's coming out backwards or not. This is The Reliance of the Traveler, a classic manual of Islamic Sharia law. So, Islamic sacred law, I'm sorry. So, in this version of Sharia law, blasphemy, or the insulting of Islam, is actually considered apostasy. And apostasy in Sharia law is absolutely punishable by death. So Sharia law does mete out the death penalty for blasphemy as being part of apostasy. So, as an example, leaving Islam is the ugliest form of unbelief or kufr and the worst. It may come about through sarcasm, as when someone is told, trim your nails, it is sunnah, and he replies, I would not do it even if it were. When a person who has reached puberty and is sane voluntarily apostatizes from Islam, he deserves to be killed. Okay, let me get some other. And then it talks about who can kill him, the caliph or his representative, or if the killer is disciplined, if he has a chance to come back to Islam, if he returns or if he doesn't. Okay, here are acts that entail leaving Islam. To intend to commit unbelief, to speak words that imply unbelief, such as Allah is the third of three, or I am Allah, unless one's tongue has run away with one, or is quoting another, or is one of the friends of Allah Most High. To revile Allah or his messenger, to deny the existence of Allah, his endless eternality, or to deny any of his attributes, to be sarcastic about Allah's name, his command, his interdiction, his promise, or his threat, to deny any verse of the Quran or anything which by scholarly consensus belongs to it, to mockingly say, I don't know what faith is, to reply to someone who says, there is no power or strength save through Allah. You're saying there's no power or strength won't save you from hunger. So there are a lot of examples. To hold that any of Allah's messengers or prophets are liars, or to deny their being sent. To revile the religion of Islam, to deny the existence of angels or jinn or the heavens, to be sarcastic about any ruling of the sacred law, to deny that Allah intended the prophet's message to be the religion followed by the entire world. So all of these things are considered apostasy in Sharia law. And again, apostasy, as I read, is punishable by death. So let's cruise back over to Wikipedia and talk specifically about what is the blasphemy law in Pakistan. Well, let's look at it. I'm going to read you religious offenses and punishments. Okay, this is straight out of the Pakistani Penal Code. All right, section 295C. That's the most famous one on blasphemy. It reads, it's a description, use of derogatory remarks, spoken, written, directly or indirectly, etc., defiles the name of Muhammad or other prophets. The penalty, mandatory death and fine. Trial must take place in a court of session with a Muslim judge presiding. Section 295B, defiling, etc., of the Quran. The penalty, imprisonment for life. Section 295A, deliberate and malicious acts intended to outrage religious feelings of any class by insulting its religion or religious beliefs. The penalty, up to 10 years imprisonment or fine or both. Section 295, injuring or defiling places of worship with intent to insult the religion of any class. The penalty, up to 2 years imprisonment or fine or both. Section 298, uttering of any word or making any sound or making any gesture or placing of any object in the sight with the deliberate intention of wounding the religious feelings of any person. Penalty, 1 year imprisonment or fine or both. Section 298A, use of derogatory remarks, etc., in respect of holy personages. Penalty, 3 years imprisonment or fine or both. Section 298B, This is the Ahmadi blasphemy law. Misuse of epithets, descriptions, and titles, etc., reserved for certain holy personages or places by Ahmadis. The penalty, 3 years imprisonment and fine. Section 298C, Ahmadi blasphemy law, aka Ordinance 20. If a Muslim or preaching or propagating his faith, or in any manner whatsoever outraging the religious feelings of Muslims, or posing himself as a Muslim, penalty, 3 years imprisonment and fine. What that means, folks, is if you are an Ahmadi Muslim, you can be imprisoned and or fined for speaking out in public about being Muslim, because the law in Pakistan says that Ahmadis are not Muslims, even though Ahmadis say that they are Muslims. It's a different sect of Islam. The Pakistani Penal Code punishes Ahmadis for claiming to be Muslims. So I'll let you think about that and make your own opinion. So my question to you, dear listeners and folks that are watching this, so what do you think about all that? Those are the facts, and there are a few opinions thrown in there. Do you think that there's a disconnect between the true Islam and Sharia law? And what do you think about that? What do you think that can be done to raise awareness about the blasphemy laws in the world, and in Pakistan in particular, that this basic human right of free speech and freedom of religion, frankly, can be improved in Pakistan? How can we get these blasphemy laws to be repealed? So I urge you to read my dissertation. It's called On Blasphemy, Immigrant Muslim Leaders in America. And I also encourage you to read my blog, christianladyveteran.com. I deal with issues on Islam and Christianity, and I throw in some stories about my military career as well. So I want to thank you all for watching, and have a blessed day, and wash your hands during this pandemic. God bless you and love you guys. Bye-bye.